Giorgio, thank you. I'm wondering what the role of repetition is in liturgy in particular, since it seems to me that liturgies have to be repeated in order to maintain their efficacy. And so when you suggest to us that performance within performance art or performance within modern context remains within the orbit of liturgy, I'm just wondering whether you understand that as a seamless repetition with no difference, whether you see that as a repetition with difference. How do you explain the transmission or the reproduction over time?
No, first, of course, liturgy is the place of repetition, no? And the term celebratio, celebration, comes from a Latin term, celebrare, which just means frequent. So, does it exist, celebre in English? The adjective for that? No. Because a celebre street in Rome means there are many people going to it. So it's the place of repetition. And this also, it's a big contradiction in the church, because the foundation for liturgy was the idea that developed in the letter to the Jews that Christ is a priest, is an archpriest who celebrated a sacrificed himself, but this he made only once. And this is the difference with the sacrifices of the Jews, because the Jews had to repeat their sacrifices in the temple, while the Christ sacrifice was meant to happen only once and forever. But then the church, on the contrary, took this model, but developed the theory of the Mass, the sacrament, which of course will be repeated. Which is a contradiction, because it is an act whose validity is absolute. The Mass realizes the redemption, because it repeats the Christ's passion and resurrection. Nevertheless, it must be repeated. So there is a big I see a big contradiction in the church there. Of course, they couldn't establish a sacrament which is only celebrated once. But as far as the performance in contemporary art, especially in contemporary art, I was always struck by the fact that it should be unique by definition. It is not. It is repeated even by other artists. So I think that in the very idea of liturgy there is an inner contradiction between a certain structure which should be unique once for all. No? The liturgical action is in a way unique, and the fact that it must be repeated. And I think this I found also everywhere in art, etc. No? In a way it should be unique, but it is repeated.
I'm just thinking there's, of course, a tradition of contemporary performance art and visual art that actually starts with the presumption of reproducibility.
Right? Which is very strange, because in a certain sense a performance is unique, because it happens in a certain moment, in a certain place, but then it is repeated. You know? Don't you see a kind of contradiction? But
yes, I do, but I'm just reminded of your remark about not knowing very much about digital technology, and I'm thinking that sometimes reproducibility is actually built into the media, so there is no pretension to singularity. There's not even that moment, that originary moment. So I'm wondering if there's something that has happened in contemporary performance that actually marks a certain kind of rupture with the liturgical tradition that you're describing.
I see more a similarity, because I found the same contradiction and the same contrast in the liturgy.
Yeah, Vincent.
Well, following up partially on Judith Butler's question,
relating to the relation between art and liturgy.
Can you speak louder?
Oh yes. When you were talking about the relation between art movements and liturgy, there are three examples that immediately came up, and these are the Fluxus, the Vienna Actionism, and Joseph Beuys. And what I think they have in common, and I cannot but relate this in a way to the way you describe the monasterial development as secluding communes, that all the three movements have in common that they start indeed with an exploration of performance, of repeated, unique performances. And then in all three you see that they spread out and they become, in a sense, politicized. In Fluxus you have the housing projects, in Vienna Actionism, Hermann Nietzsche with his commune, and Joseph Beuys who founded the Green Party. Do you think that there is, as soon as this liturgical element spills over to other fields, there's automatically some kind of spreading which tries to include every aspect of life or living?
Especially what struck me also in your example is that each time that you have a liturgical element, for instance in the artistic performance, you have a political implications. So why all these movements? The most clear example is situationism. No? Why they always evolve in politics? The surrealism, so it's. I think that this is this liturgical element, which is in itself, as I try to show, a political element, has something of the politics. So this spreading is both is immediately political in this sense, but perhaps because liturgy and politics, and as I try to show, are in some way linked.
Okay, Finland.
Thank you for the presentation.
Paolo.
Yes. I'm wondering how you see the role of Saint Augustine's.
The role of?
The role of Saint Augustine's, the city of God, in terms of this picture that you presented, especially in relation to the archaeology of the office, because it seems that also here we have the relation between the beginnings and something. The political and the setting in motion of something new, and especially, my question is, do you see in your archaeology of the office, how would you see the city of God in relation to this?
Augustine plays an important role insofar as the doctrine of the sacrament is implied, because he is one of the first to. As you know, he had the theory of science. No? He elaborated a strong theory of science, and he had the idea so that sacrament is a sign. He's perhaps the first one who says the sacrament is a sign. So in this sense, he played an important role in this history, in this archaeology. Perhaps not in the notion of ficium. I don't know if the conception of his last masterwork, City of God, can have to do with this problem of liturgy. It has to do a lot, of course, with the political representation, but I don't think that his contribution to liturgy is perhaps limited to this idea of the sacrament as a sign.
Yeah.
I think your argument about the reintroduction or the introduction of liturgy into politics in the 20th century is very clear and fine point, especially with the 19th century reintroduction of the medieval story of Mascaron. The story of Mascaron in the Middle Ages. It was one of the most used teaching tools. It was a story of the devil suing Jesus for his soul's back. And the moral of the story is that Jesus always wins, essentially. And it was translated